Dr. Ince. Gentlemen, debate on textual criticism of the New Testament. Dr. Ince. Gentlemen, I have accepted the invitation of Mr. Miller to preside on this occasion, coming rather as a learner. In some respects, it looks as if the old custom of the divinity schools was being revived when there was going to be an opponent and responded on each side. And then it was the duty of the professor to act as moderator and sum up at the end the result of the debate. Such a moderator ought to be an expert in the subject. I cannot in the least pretend to be an expert. The exigencies of a long life in connection with a great college, which demanded so very much time, both for the tutorial work and for general superintendence, made it impossible for me to devote myself to any special research in such matters as the textual criticism of the text of the Bible, even if one's own special taste led one in that direction. Therefore, that aspect of the old divinity disputations will be wanting today. As I understand, the object of our meeting now is to hear a statement and have a discussion on the two great rival theories. As to what the true text and the original text of the New Testament is, it is hardly necessary to say that there is a strong division of opinion between the maintainers of that which for a long time has been the received text and known as such, and the later theories of the revised text, which have received exposition in the celebrated work of Bishop Westcott and Dr. Hort. Those who maintain either of these two views are to have the opportunity of expressing arguments in favor of it, and especially, I think, it is designated that Mr. Miller, who has taken an enormous amount of trouble and devoted an enormous amount of diligence and labor to the investigation of these subjects, and who stands before the world as the representative of Dean Burgon, may remove some misapprehensions which he thinks have visited in the criticisms which have been directed to the two books which he has brought out in connection with this great question. I would only like to say that I trust the whole discussion will be conducted in a spirit of absolute judicial impartiality. The question to be determined is, what are the scientific principles to be applied in the definition of the true text of the Bible? Many of us knew the late Dean Burgon. I knew him myself very well. Nobody could be more delighted than I was to meet him in private society, or to hear his admirable expositions in the pulpit of St. Mary's. At the same time, I must confess that the vehement tone in which he conducted some of his controversies, and his occasional imputation of motives to those who did not agree with him, rather repelled one. That was an error of great mind, I think, and we ought to feel quite sure that an utter absence of any imputation of motives, theological or literary, should distinguish our discussion today. I have to say that it is not intended that any resolution whatever should be put that is not really the natural sequel to such a discussion. The object is rather, I think, to direct attention, especially in Oxford, to this great question, with the hope that it will be taken up and prosecuted by scholars who have the time to devote to it, because it affects not only Greek and Syriac scholars, but all the early versions must be brought into consideration. Several gentlemen familiar with the question are going to speak, and I am instructed to call upon them in order. If the discussion should be protracted, it may be necessary to limit some of the speeches. Possibly no such necessity will arise. I will begin by asking Mr. Miller to open the discussion and state his views on the subject. In the next video, Edward Miller will be speaking.